So let's get started. So what we'll do is today, before we get into today's topic, we'll just quickly, run through what are the different topics which we saw in yesterday's session. So in
Okay.
yesterday's session, we started with an introduction, and then we went into FSM, and then we saw what is a functional setup manager, how to, enable the offerings, how to export and import and setups, everything. And then one important point which I missed to highlight in yesterday's session is right, as part of the FSM, where we do export and import, right? This FSM is only for the configurations. It is not for the data. Okay? So this is one point which we need to be very keen, because what happens is, let's say tomorrow we build all the business units, and or let's say we have all the requisition gets created, and then if we wanted to migrate that requisitions, then FSM is not the place. So FSM is only for migrating the configurations, basically the only the setup data. Okay? The customer data, or basically only the configurations, the data cannot be migrated using FSM. So this is one point which I missed to stress out in yesterday's session. And
So
then we
to
yes.
be clear, so FSM is only for configuration, not for migration.
No, FSM is for configuration as well as migration, both.
Okay.
So if I just go to that FSM screen, so if you see, we first plan and then we opt in, which is enabling the offerings, everything. Setup is where we do all the setups.
Okay.
Okay.
So
And then
so migration, I know. So we are migrating from maybe one setup to another setup. So configuration means it is from the fresh start to configure a system.
yes. So just to give you an idea, because the reason why you feel little disconnect there is because we have not went into the configuration set.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
So if we wanted to do some setups, let's say, job requisition templates or candidate selection process. So this is where we come and, choose the task for the configurations.
Okay.
So just because we have not gone into the setups yet, right? That's where you feel little disconnect. But once we start, then you will understand.
Got it.
So the FSM is for setups, deployment, which is about migrating the data, and then maintenance, like going back to the configurations and making some changes, all those things. Hmm. So we talked about FSM, and then we saw what all what would be what you can able to configure at the end of this course, and then we saw certain a simple standard recruiting process life cycle, and then we also saw what are the prerequisites required for implementing the recruiting ORC module. And then we access the recruiting areas we saw from the employee manager and from a recruiter login. So the next what we have is, so positioning of ORC and OTSC, which is the Taleo. So Taleo, that's the short name, but from an Oracle language they call it as Oracle Talent Acquisition Cloud, whereas ORC it is like an Oracle Recruiting Cloud. Hmm. So the first thing many people ask, especially the customers, right? They ask us, right, is Oracle sunsetting Taleo? So what do we mean by sunsetting? It's like shutting down the product. Okay? So Oracle has confirmed in multiple occurrences, multiple places, and they keep telling the same thing again and again, that they are not going to sunset the Taleo module. Which means they are not going to decommission the Taleo module. It is still will be used because there are still thousands of customers who are still using Taleo. The reason why we are looking at from this perspective is because when you start doing your implementation, these are some questions which comes as a standard from the customers. So people who have already worked on Taleo, right? For them, they know all this inside outside of informations. But for people who are new to Fusion and who are new to ORC, right, for them this information would be useful. Okay? And then, as we saw in yesterday's session, currently Oracle do not have a standalone recruiting on the roadmap for ORC. So that means in order for ORC to be implemented, we need to have the core HR module, at least the base module to be implemented. And then ORC is dependent on HR. So if the customer is looking for a standalone recruiting solution, then OTAC, which is the Taleo, is the right solution for them. So we still have a lot of customers, there are one customer, consulting customer, one of the biggest Oracle customer in Dubai, right? So their main line of business is, consulting, recruiting, they are in recruiting staffing company, right? So they hire a lot of people for their, customers. So they still use Talio, and then, they get on an average, they get like, 800 to 900 job applications a day. That's the volume they have. So for them, all they need only a recruitment solution. They don't need anything else. So for those kind of customers, Talio is the right option. And then the number one benefit that ORC has over Talio or other products is that, ORC supports integration with OTSC, but the user experience will never be the same. The data models and, ORC also has a seamless integration with onboarding. So, and then it will also has an inbuilt integration with the entire Fusion suite, which we saw in yesterday's session. And then, there are some customers, right, who do not want to wait for certain features, which has been developed in Talio, which is not there in ORC, because we have to remember that Talio is now like, it's not 15, it's like close to, 17 plus years old product. So there have been a lot of iterations, a lot of new features, new enhancements, but ORC is just like, 5 years old. ORC started rolled out to the customers only in mid of 2018. So ORC started with 18C version onwards. So over a period of time, Oracle has brought in a lot of new functionalities in recruiting, but there are still few minor things which even we as a consultant we feel Talio does a better job, but which we cannot say to the customers.
Uh, yeah. So I have a question here. So if I'm learning this ORC, and so is it possible? Can I implement Talio?
No,
No.
both are like completely different structure, Franklin.
Okay.
So it's like, see, a lot of the concepts would be same between ORC and Talio. The reason being that both are recruiting solutions. Okay? So if you take SAP Success Factor, right, or if you take Workday recruiting, you will still feel like a lot of processes are like common across all the recruiting products across ERPs, different ERPs, because they all function the same thing: hiring people, onboarding people. Hmm. So the functionalities will be the same, but the terminologies, the concepts, the architecture will be different.
Okay, got it.
And there are six main reasons why customers normally move from ORC to Talio to ORC. One of the better main reason is like better data quality and with and reduced integrations. So with ORC, we don't need the number of integrations. Basically there is zero integrations needed. Okay? Whereas with Talio, right, you need to build a lot of integrations. One integration is to bring the data from your core HR to Talio module, and then one we have to build another integration for bringing your Talio data to your core HR, and then you will also end up creating a lot of integrations if you're using Talio onboarding. So with ORC, we can, we'll have a reduced number of integrations, and then better data quality. What do we mean by data quality? Is like, let's say we created a new person here. And then if a recruiter wants to use that person as a hiring manager for a requisition, right? Then the recruiter has to wait for the next integration to run, because the data is not real time in Talio. Whereas with ORC, it's all real time. You can just hire an employee at 9 a.m. and then at 9:05 or 9:01, right? You can use that new hired the employee as an hiring manager or recruiter, and then start creating a requisition. Because the data is all real time in ORC module. And then integrated reports. Since ORC is part of the Fusion suite, we can able to bring data, combining all their we can combine data and build a report from across different modules. Let's say there was one scenario. What happened is like we had a requirement where the customer wants to know which employee has applied to highest number of IGPs. So because like employee is part of core HR, And then job applications is part of recruiting. So we can easily bring out, reports, and then we can able to do it. And then, we there were also a lot of other requirements. A customer wants to see, like, the employees who has applied to a particular requisition and their assignment informations along with the talent ratings for last 3 years. So this kind of reporting is easy because it is all integrated source. And then it's a one HR platform. That means, like, the employees, they will be in one application for all their employee self-service, IJPs, internal job applications, employee referrals, everything happens within one HR platform. And then ORC also provides a seamless onboarding experience. So from a technical standpoint, right, for onboarding, we use a tool called checklist from the backend. And from the front end, it is now replaced, this onboarding is now replaced as journeys. So though, like, technical on a technical standpoint, this is part of core HR, but we always take it as part of our, ORC sessions. The reason being is that, this is the end process of when recruiting. Like, once you hire a candidate, you have to onboard a candidate. So onboarding is still also part of, the recruiting. That's why we also cover the recruiting as part of onboarding as part of our training sessions. And since the journeys or the checklist is part of core HR system, you know, it works seamlessly and there is no need for any integrations. And then adaptive intelligence and digital assistant. So adaptive intelligence, in short, we call it, AI. So not the artificial intelligence, it's like, adaptive intelligence. So what does it do? So let's say you have a requisition, okay, where you have, like, you have few candidates who are applied. You open one candidate and then you will see a AI functionality called the similar candidates. So what will it do is, the similar candidates, it will show you all the other, candidates in the database with similar skills and experience. So when then, when a recruiter is creating a requisition or a hiring manager is creating a requisition, we have something called this time to hire, estimated time to hire. So what the AI does is the AI will read all the, requisition data which you are creating, and then it will read, all the other requisitions which is already created with a similar data, and then it will give you an analysis of, like, in order to, hire someone against this particular requisition, how much time it would take based on your past data. And then there are a lot of, AI functionalities which is keep getting added. We'll see that, in later sessions. And next we have is digital assistant. So what is a digital assistant? This is from an Oracle standpoint. The right name we use is, like, ODA, Oracle Digital Assistant. So that basically is a separate module. It's a separate configuration thing, but it works seamlessly with the recruiting, in the career sites. So what happens is it is basically it's a chatbot. And when the candidates come to our career site, they will see a chatbot in our career site. And then there, the candidates can enter, ask questions like, is there any opening for Java developer? And then the chatbot will show all the requisitions which has this keyword Java developer. And then if the candidate further drills down, is there any Java developer opening in Bangalore, India? Then, the bot will find out all the requisitions which has this keyword Java developer with the posting location as Bangalore, India, which shows up. And then the candidate can still further drill down. And then now with, new functionalities, right, the candidate can upload the resume, and then the digital assistant can show list of all the positions which is matching to, his or her resume. So these are a lot of AI functionalities which is coming up. And then, when the candidate is applying, we have something called as responsive AI. So where candidate can, just upload the resume in the job applications, and then the AI tool will pick up, and then write some skills, summaries, and all the things. So we'll see that in detail once we go into our applications. And then improve internal mobility. So what do we mean by internal mobility? Like, so basically, the employees can, access ORC from the mobile applications, and then the candidates can access. So it's like completely, mobility. So that's what we are referring. And these are, like, some comparative measures between, Taleo versus ORC. Okay? So the chatbot which we talked about, it is there in the ORC but not in Taleo. And then when it comes to interview management, the entire interview process is seamlessly integrated. It works with ORC. Like, you can enable integrations with your Microsoft Teams, or you can enable an integration with Zoom. And then Office 365 integrations is there. There are a lot of functionalities in interviews in ORC, but not in Taleo. And then we have job requisitions with videos, images to engage candidates. See, with Taleo, it was not there, but in the recent times, Taleo has brought in an additional functionalities, something called as fluid recruiting. So that's like enhancement which Oracle has brought in on Taleo, which will allow the recruiters to now add some images and videos, but the UI, the experience will never be as amazing as what we have in ORC. And then we have standalone implementation. So when it comes to Taleo, yes, we can do standalone implementation. ORC cannot be done as a standalone implementation. And then we have a third-party vendor called eQuest. So what is this eQuest partner? So the eQuest partner, basically what they do is they are a job distribution partner. What do we mean by job distribution partner? Is that they will, whenever a recruiter post a requisition, right? This equals will take the requisition and then post this requisition across or multiple career sites. Hmm? Just a moment. So it will take this requisition and post this career requisitions in in all our external portals. For example, let's say you create a requisition in ORC module, and equals what it does is it will take this requisition and post it in your Naukri automatically, or post it in your LinkedIn jobs automatically. And then if you have Monster or Career Builder or any job portals, right, it will automatically be posted, condition that you have sufficient license. And then it equals will also have some few hundreds of job portals which are like free, and then which comes as part of the equest package. So this integration with equest, that comes as an seeded with Taleo, but not with ORC. With ORC it's a paid subscription. So these are some of the major differences between ORC and Taleo. So the reason why we are looking into this particular topic, comparing ORC and Taleo, is because as part of your implementations, right, you would see a lot of customers who would be migrating from Taleo to ORC, and then since both these products are is part of Oracle, right, both these are like Oracle products, there are high chances that you may come, you may get few questions or few clarifications with Taleo and ORC. So that's the reason why we are spending some time to understand why Taleo and ORC are the two different products we have in Oracle. So with this, we have just completed like this particular topic. So what we'll do is we'll just quickly move on to the next topic. Just open the next PPT. And then as part of the trainings, I think you should have already received access to Fusion applications, right? Or you are ready to receive it, Franklin and Rizwana.
Yes, we got access, but I did not got
Okay,
access to check it.
okay, sure. And how about the documents? Yes, Rizwana.
Yeah, I also did not check that. Today I'll check and let you know.
Okay, sure. And how did you got any other share drive with access to uh, documents or anything like that?
Yes, so this Excel, I think we got this Excel access. Then, so one more share drive which says the document PPT.
PPTs, right? Okay, fine, perfect. See, and since we talked about this PPT, right, just a quick, info, don't go and refer to, the future session PPTs, right? The reason being is that, see, if you already are working on some projects and you wanted to use it as a reference, yes, you are welcome. You can please go ahead. But, if you just wanted to explore and, see, the reason being that, we have seen this in our past sessions. Okay, so people they get overexcited or over into, and then they keep looking at the future dated sessions, PPTs, and then let's say I have a PPT from a future session which I'm planning to cover in 2 weeks after. But people, they just go through that and then they come and ask questions. So and then what happens is that will not only disturb the flow, but it will also create a lot of unnecessary confusions to the other people. So just a request from my side. You can, if you have some projects, you can very well do that. But if you don't have, then just go with the current flow. So with that, we are moving to the next topic where we are gonna start with getting to know the recruiting module. So as usual, we'll have the learning objective, and then we'll see who are the end users involved, what are the different end user activities, end user applications, and then we will have this particular slide in most of the topics going forward. So what is this rules and strategies? So these rules and strategies, these are completely built or drafted based on our past experiences. Okay? So we cannot bring all our past experiences, right? Then we will have hundreds of slides in all the PPTs in all the topics. So there are certain things which we bring from a freshers perspective. So someone who is new to ORC, for them, what kind of perspective or informations we need to give them, that is what we are going to bring it here. So that is what we are going to put it in the rules and strategies. So based on our past experience, certain issues would be there and certain important things which you guys needs to be aware, we'll be putting that in the rules and strategies. Okay? And then since we already saw the recruiting process life cycle, we'll just skip that one for now. So now coming to the learning objective for this particular topic, we'll list all the different end users and what are the different activities involved in the recruiting module. And then we'll examine the end user experience from a recruiter, hiring manager, and from a candidate perspective. So first thing we have is who are the end users? Since most of them, in the batch are from the recruiting background, right? So we all know that the primary end users for an recruiting module would be the recruiters, hiring managers, and the candidates. Team, I'm sorry, just give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry guys. So we all know that these are the three primary end users. And also one more note with regards to our session, right? As part of our session, whenever I refer candidates, then it means both internal and external candidates. We would be referring to both internal and the external candidates. So external candidates, we all know who are the external candidates, someone who is outside the organization. And internal candidates is someone who is part of the organization. They could be in full-time employees or they could be in contingent workers, contractors. So both of them, we call them as internal employees. And there are certain customers who wants to treat, the contract workers as an external candidates. Then in such case, we will refer to them as external people, external candidates. So these are the primary end users we have. And apart from this primary end users, we have certain secondary end users. So this primary end users are Oracle standards, but the secondary end users are based on the customer to customer. This secondary end users will keep changing. So first we have requisition and offer collaborators. So we know, you guys are aware about the functionality of a collaborator. Right? So whom do we call as a collaborator? Franklin and this one.
Yeah, I guess collaborator role is similar to the recruiter who supports the recruiter and performs almost the same task like the recruiter, but they don't have access to all the features and functionalities which the recruiter has.
Yes, exactly. So in recruiting in ORC, right, what happens is every requisitions can have only one recruiter. We can have only one recruiter,
Yeah,
tagged
definitely
against each
collaborator.
requisition.
Mm-hmm.
So But in real time scenario, there could be multiple people. Like, let's say if I am, I and my team would be working on a requisition. So, let's say I have myself and, two more recruiters work on a requisition. So there are three people who are working on a requisition. But the product will support only one user to be the recruiter. So the other two people would be added as an collaborators. So the collaborators will have the, if they have the same role as the recruiter, then they can perform all the actions which a recruiter can able to perform. So we have requisition collaborators and offer collaborators. Why do we differentiate between requisition and offer? Is that because the offer collaborators, right? I mean, there are certain customers, they will not have collaborators at the requisition, but they will have collaborators at the offer who would, coordinate with the candidate in making the candidate acceptance to the offer letter. And if the candidate has any queries or anything, the collaborators follow up if there are anything on the compensation. So things like this. So we'll have only offer collaborators as well. So the next, you know, and before that, yeah, I just wanted to let you know on the start part. So we have the requisition and the offer collaborators, the hiring managers, and the recruiters. All these three people are together called as hiring team. So in once we go in deep into our application, right, you will see certain places, where we'll be referring, this term called hiring team. So what does hiring team means? Hiring team means okay. So hiring team means like it's basically it's the combo of the hiring manager, recruiter, and the collaborators all together. They are called as hiring team. So let's say if we wanted to send some notification to to all these three stakeholders, then we refer them as like we refer the notification to send to hiring team. So that's the term. But these are like Oracle terms which we use. And then apart from this, we have recruiting marketing sources, someone who do all the market campaigns and marketing steps and all. And then we have approvers. So whenever a requisition is created, someone has to approve, right? We'll have the DOs, the delegation of authorities, right? So level one approval, level two, based on the requisition details, we will have multiple levels of approvals. And then we will also have interviews. So the people who are taking interviews, they are also secondary end users we have, and then employee referrals. So these are the different secondary end users we have. So now coming to the end user activities. So what an hiring manager can perform. So these are some of the activities which an hiring manager can perform. And if you ask me, Harish, are these the only activities which the end users can perform? No, these are some of the activities which the different end users can able to perform. So the hiring manager, they can initiate a requisition, they can approve requisition, they can review the top candidates, they can participate in an interview, and they can approve a job offer. And then for the hiring managers, the access would be my team and under that hiring. And then the second kind of communications which happens sends to the managers is the emails. So next we have recruiters. So what a recruiter can able to do, recruiters can able to complete the requisitions which are initiated by the hiring manager. Right? They can complete it, or they can also create requisitions from scratch. They can view and screen the candidates, move the candidates through the process, interview candidates, manage candidate statuses, create and complete job offers. And the system area would be my client group and hiring. Apart from the system, they will also have all the communications coming through the emails. And next we have candidates. So as is mentioned in the previous slide, whenever we refer candidates, it could be internal and external. It could be either of the candidates. So the candidates, they can able to search and apply, and they can participate in an interview. They can accept or decline an offer. They can complete all the post-hire activities. And then the system area would be for external candidates, it would be career sites. For internal candidates, it would be internal job openings page. And then they will also get email communications accordingly. So these are the different end user activities we have. And then these are the different end user, applications which we have. Okay, so this is like, the hiring work area, which we saw in yesterday's session. And then we have career sites, which we'll see that in today's session, we'll see how the career sites will look like. And then this job opening page, which is, the opportunity marketplace, which we saw. And then we have emails, which this is how it will look like. And then when it comes to rules and strategies, there are certain, rules and I mean, when it comes to the end user experience, right, there are certain rules and strategies that comes to the end user experience. So what are those? So the first thing is like, the end users, they need to have the proper privileges to see the relevant data and perform the appropriate function. So as I said in the previous session, everything in Fusion module works based on your roles and privileges. Okay? So you will have role, and inside the role you will have a lot of privileges. Okay? So for example, if I just go into the application, if I just go to hiring, and when I create a requisition, so here I can create requisition using position, job, existing requisition, blank recs. So I can create a requisition using any of these features. Okay? So, how do I get to see all these options? Because of the privileges which is added to the role, which is added to my user account. Okay? So if the role does not have like, if the role does not have the privilege uh, to add a requisition, create a requisition using existing requisition and the blank requisition, then I will not able to see these two options. These two options will not be visible to me. So that is why in Fusion application, everything works based on the rules and the privileges. And all the external candidates can be driven to the career sites through the third-party job postings or social networking sites, referral campaigns, and all the other marketing efforts. Okay? So it's not that we have to collect the job application there. It's not like that. We can route the candidates to our external career sites accordingly. And all the internal candidates can apply through the the me area of the HCM by going to the opportunity market page. And this page is also where all the internal candidates can view and accept job offers. And this is the same place where they can able to send the referrals to other referrals about the jobs to their friends, colleagues, or other workers. And then the system allows the candidates to verify the job application through email, which is Oracle standard. And some customers, if they want, they can set up a candidate auto confirmation. So these are certain functionalities which we have. We will see those functionalities in detail once we go into our setups. So this is a quick introduction about the end users with the different activities and all those things. So any doubts or questions so far?
No, Harish.
Perfect. So see, these are like very small topics, so which I'm just trying to move with a short time frame. The reason being that you guys are all recruitment specialists, so just a quick walkthrough should be good enough. So then we will start with our next topic, which is configuring the recruiting users and security. So this is gonna here we are gonna talk in most from an Oracle module perspective, from the ORC module. So what are we gonna talk in this topic? We will start with a quick introduction about recruiting users and securities, and then recruiting role-based securities, how to configure recruiting users and securities, and then we have a security profile called as requisition security profile. So we'll see, how what this functionality works, and then some sample comparisons for the different recruiting functions, and then certain rules and strategies when it comes to security profiles, and then we will also talk about so maybe what we'll do is to like in the interest of everyone, right? We will just we'll let's not go in detail about all these topics for now. So what we'll do is we'll just see an introduction and then the role-based securities. All those remaining topics, right? All these remaining topics, we will come back to it, at the latest time of the training session, maybe at the end of the ORC module. The reason being is that, these are very complex topics, when it comes to the roles and securities are very complex. So we talked about it, at the end of the training session. This will help you guys to understand, what are we talking about. The roles, the securities, the privileges, everything. We'll talk about it maybe at the end of the training session. What do you guys say?
Yes, Harish.
So that would make more easier. So we will start with an introduction to the users and securities. So in the previous topic, right, we saw who are the different end users, right? Those are like, from a generic one. But here we are going to talk from an, the roles perspective. So in Fusion, we have three major roles. So now we have recruiting administrator, recruiters, and hiring manager. These are the three roles, which we have in Fusion application. Yeah. So what does a recruiting administrator does? The recruiting administrator is the one who is responsible for all the configuration setups, basically the functional consultants. And then the recruiter and the hiring managers, they perform the roles accordingly. And apart from that, we can have secondary roles as well. And then remember, this secondary roles, these are not seeded within the HCM. These are not seeded rules, but they can be created as part, for the purpose of recruiting, marketing, sources and content managers. So some customers, what happens is as part of the recruiting setup set, we have a functionality called content library. So what is the use of this content library? This is the place where we put all the contents which we are going to use in the Fusion application. So let's say if we are going to use a job description, the posting descriptions. Okay? So for each job, we have to create a posting description. Right? So we create them in the content library. So normally this content library it is handled by the recruiting administrators. But if the customer sees, the recruiter wants to access the content library and recruiter are the ones who will maintain the content library, then what we'll do is we'll just take that privilege from the recruiting administrator role and then we will add it to the recruiter role. So similarly, there would be some customers who says, Harish, we have, a sourcer role. Okay? I'm sorry, this content, right? It will not be added. It will be created as a separate role, and they call it as content manager, who will have access only to the content library in the setups. And then similarly, some customers they say, right, Harish, we don't, we have a separate role called as, marketing sources, marketers. Okay, so who do all the marketing stuff. So for them, they don't need to have access to the requisitions under. All they need to have access is only to the campaign section in the hiring under the hiring. Then what we'll do is we'll just take this campaign, we'll just take the campaigns privileges alone from the recruiter. From the recruiter, we'll just take only the campaigns and then create them as a separate role and then we name it as recruitment marketing or the sources. And if they wanted to do the sourcing, then we take the privileges accordingly and then we create them the sourcing roles. So these are the primary users we have. Primary are the recruiting administrators, hiring managers, and the recruiters. And the secondary rules which are not seeded but can be created based on the customers. So if you ask me, Harish, are these the only secondary rules we have? No, it's not like that. Based on your requirements, you can have a number of secondary rules. For example, in one of my projects in Singapore, the customer, they said, like, they have recruitment, they have recruiting assistants. Basically the collaborators, but they can, they should have access to the requisitions, but they cannot perform certain things. For example, they cannot perform and they cannot create an offer for a candidate. So then what we'll do is we'll just take all the required privileges from the recruiter role, and then we create them as a separate role called as recruitment, coordinators or whatever the customer wants to name them. So similarly, based on requirements, we would end up creating, multiple roles. So now when it comes to the, Fusion, as I said, like, everything works based on the rules. Okay? So that's why we are going to see, like, from a security perspective as well. So we'll see which role can able to perform what kind of transactions for which data. So first we have hiring managers. So what a hiring manager can do, the hiring managers can able to approve job offers. So for which job offers the hiring manager can able to, approve? Hiring managers can able to approve the job offers for the workers in the reporting hierarchy or for the requisitions for which he is the hiring manager. So the hiring manager cannot able to approve the offers for for some candidates who are from a different requisition. So those kind of things cannot be done. And then we have recruiters. So what the recruiters can do, recruiters can create requisitions, manage candidate pools, create offers, everything. For which data they can able to perform for a specified AOR. In Fusion, we have this functionality called AOR, which is area of responsibility. So in the area of responsibility, we will define, who is going to be responsible for which kind of data. To give a very simple layman example, right? We will have class leaders, right? In the schools, we will have class leaders, or if you go to an organization, you will have HRBPs. Okay? HRBPs would be for this particular division or this particular department, he is the HRBP, he or she is the HRBP. And then for that another department, there'll be a separate HRBP, right? So similarly, we can also define recruiters for this particular organization. This is the recruiter. For this particular organization, this is the recruiter. We can able to define it. So the recruiters, they can able to create, all this. They can able to perform all these actions only for the data for which they have access to. And then we have sources. They can create campaigns, manage candidate communication, track progress, everything for the requisitions which are aligned with them. So, and then we have recruiting administrators. As I said, the recruiting administrators are the ones who can perform all the configuration and maintenance function, basically all the setups. Okay? And for the recruiting administrators, there is no restriction on data. The recruiting administrators can access all the configuration data. Okay? So we cannot define that, let's say if the customers have 5 different countries. Okay? We cannot say that, this recruiting administrator can access the setups of, India alone or any other country specific one. We cannot define like that. The recruiting administrators basically will have access to all the recruiting setups. So next we have the recruiting users, securities, all those things, right? So what we'll do is we'll just skip all these topics for now, but we'll definitely come back to this topics maybe at the end of the ORC module. We'll definitely come back to these topics so that it will be very easy for you guys to go through. So that's why I'm going to put all this as highlighted here with yellow, so that even I personally I don't miss these options. So any doubts or questions of our team on the different users, the rules?
Yes. So Harish, you have told that the recruiters can access, we can modify, the recruiter can access only this organization or a particular organization. So that does mean that the recruiter can particularly work on only IT requirements and non-IT requirements. We can define like that.
So we cannot mention IT non-IT. So there could be some system metrics where we can able to define. Let's say for example, if you are capturing IT or non-IT somewhere in as part of your core HR. So then we can able to define. So for example, in recruiting, we have something called as recruiting types, which is a field we have in the requisition. So you can, in the recruiting type, if you have 2 fields like, IT, non-IT, and then
Yes.
that using that as a parameter, you can define like, the recruiter can able to see those requisitions or not.
Okay. And the second question is that, so if I'm creating a requisition in IT particularly, so it will automatically tag that particular recruiter?
No. That is a functionality which we have been requesting or expecting from Oracle for a very long time. So currently we don't have the recruiters don't get mapped automatically. It's a manual thing. So only if the hiring manager field alone, what happens is the person whoever is creating the requisition, right, they would be mapped as the hiring manager automatically. But when it comes to the recruiter, it has to be a manual process.
Okay, got it.
But in real-time scenario, what happens is, I think like, many customers will ask the same question again and again. So let's say you have an organization with 10,000 employees, and then you will have like 3,000 hiring managers. Let's assume there are at least 2,000 hiring managers. So the customer says that, Harish, I have 2,000 hiring managers and then I have 100 recruiters. So this is again, this example is from my current project. So they have like, the organization count is like, around 20,000 plus employees. And then they have like, more than 180 recruiters across like, 12 different countries. And then the customer asked me, Harish, we have 150, 180 plus recruiters, and then we have like, 4,000 hiring managers. How will the hiring manager know, who is the recruiter for this? If they're closely working with some recruiter, then they know that. But if they don't have any information on the recruitment team, or let's say someone who has newly joined the organization and they wanted to hire someone for the team, then how will the hiring managers know? This is a very, this is a big, process gap we have here. So we have certain workarounds for that. So what we did is we created, few reports and then placed them, hyperlink in the place where they create requisitions. And when they click on the report will, read the person who is accessing the report. And then the report will tell for your particular, country, department, business unit, location, this person is the recruiter. And then the hiring manager has to just copy the recruiter name, paste it in the recruiter name field, and then job done. So these are some real-time, questions which we get, and then real-time solutions. But this solution, right? You might still feel like you could not able to link the process. But once we start creating a requisition, right? Once we go to the requisition section, then you will, we'll again discuss on this topic again.
Okay.
Okay? So next, we will start with the next topic, which is the recruiting and candidate experience management. So here it's like, very simple, right? Starting from here, like, we are going to have very less time on the slides. And then if you see for this particular topic, this is the only slide I have, because once I talked about this, I will we'll get into the system and then we'll start with the setups. But so to start with this topic, so this entire topics, right, all this, to go through all the setups, right, we may take today is Thursday, right? So till next Tuesday or Wednesday, we will be talking about the recruiting and candidate experience a lot, because we have that much of topics to be covered in this. Okay? So first, what we are going to do is we'll have a quick introduction about recruiting and candidate experience management, and then we have a lot of tasks which is there in the recruiting and candidate experience. We'll see that, and then we'll talk about content library, and then we'll start configuring the content library, and then geography hierarchies, and then there are certain rules and regulations for the strategies. I think that slide is missing. I will just add this slide by the time we go to the recruiting hierarchies. Sorry, geography hierarchies. So to start with, recruiting and candidate experience management. So what I'll do is let me directly get into the application. So in order to go to the recruiting and candidate experience, we have to go to setup and maintenance, settings and actions, and then setup and maintenance. And then once we go to the setup and maintenance screen, here you have to choose the setup. In the setup, you have to choose recruiting and candidate experience. Once you choose that, you will see this functional area called recruiting and candidate experience management. This is the place where you will configure all your core setups for the recruiting. All your very important setups with regards to the recruiting module, everything you will be doing it here. And as a general, right, what happens is only all the required task is what it will be shown here. You will see it is showing only the required task. But if I change this, if I click on it, and then you will see something called as all tasks. Once I change to all tasks, you will see all this task here. But if by default the required task will have limited, so this is all we have. But if I change it to all tasks, you will have lot of tasks here. So what we normally do is, as part of our training sessions, right, we will look at, all the all the important tasks, but there are certain tasks which we will leave to, which will leave it to the trainees for them to go and self-explore it. Okay? Remember one thing, right, Fusion application, right, you take any module, for example, right, the recruiting module, right? The recruiting module itself is, it's like, it's a ocean. Okay. So it's a very big module. We have lot and lot of setups here, from very small things to the big things. Okay, so we will look at all the major setups which is needed, because in order to completely go through the entire setups in the recruiting module, then we would need to spend at least minimum 90 hours to 100 hours only for the recruiting module. And if I take core HR, that's again, it's a continent, that kind of setups we have. For core HR alone, if you wanted to go through all the setups in the core HR, that would easily take 250 hours. That's the kind of the task and the setups configurations we have. Okay? But for us, what we are going to do is, we are going to cover all the basics, and then at the internet, all the basics and later, and all the advanced levels. Okay? So when I say basics, the core setups, we'll be looking at all the core setups, and all the required setups we'll be looking at it. But there are certain things which you guys can self explore, but we'll give you idea about what is the functionality of it. So that's how we will be a session. But all the all the critical, the most important setups, everything we'll be looking at it in detail. And then there are certain minor setups which you guys can always self-explore. Okay. So now coming back to our topics. So we start with the enterprise and recruiting candidate experience. So this is where all the major setups, all the required setups for the recruiting module will be done. And then once you choose any of this functional area, you will see all the tasks which is there under this particular functional area. And then you can also change, by default it will show only required tasks, and then you can change it to all tasks so that you can see list of all the tasks here. So now, since we talked about the recruiting and candidate experience, in the task we have the first task here, which is enterprise recruiting and candidate experience information. And most importantly, team, as part of your interview preparation, okay, there are few things which you guys need to be very clear on. One is the name of the task. Okay. You need to know which task you need to access in order to perform certain setups. Let's say if I wanted to change the content of the job description, then the task is content library. Okay. And the second important thing is, right, you need to be very sure on the navigations. Okay. So the navigation should, you guys need to be very clear on the navigations and on the concepts. So if the customer says, Harish, I wanted to, make some changes in, whenever I move a candidate from, whenever I move a candidate, I want certain things to be, automated. Then, for this particular concept, the task which we have to refer is the candidate selection process. So this kind of things are very crucial, especially from a fresher perspective, who is going to, switch the profile to ORC or the fusion modules. So now coming to the enterprise recruiting and candidate experience, all the setups, all the key setups, we will be configuring it here. So once I go inside this task, you will see all these different sections here. So we have recruiting management, search, configures, synonyms, AI, data purging, candidate experience, talent community, Microsoft Graphs, Zoom integration, offer, move to HR, agency hiring, campaign, sprint to PDF. So, and then events. So we have a lot of sections here, but if you ask me, Harish, are we going to look at all the sections now? No, we are not going to look at all the sections right away. We'll be coming back to it against respective topics. For example, when we talked about, when we are in the offer section, sorry, when we go to the offers, right, where we're going to talk about offers. Yeah. So when we come to this particular topics, right, then we will talk about we'll come back to the enterprise setups, and then we'll talk about all the fields which is there in offer. And then when we go to the interviews, that's when we will come and talk about Microsoft Graph and Zoom integration. Okay? And then when we talk about talent community, that will again come back to this one. So most of the screens, what we are going to see in the next few days, right? We'll be coming back and visiting the screens then and now. Okay? But we will start with the basics. The first section which we have is the recruiting management. What are the different fields you have in the recruiting management? The first and the foremost one, the most important thing and the basic setup which we have to do is the requisition number generation method. Okay? So similarly to what we have here, right? In core HR, we have the person number generation method. What both of this functionality does, whenever a requisition is created, each and every requisition needs to have a number, right? When you create a requisition, in your current ERPs or in your job portals, right? Each and every requisition will have some number. So this is the place where we will define how you want the number to be generated. What are the ways through which you can generate the number? You have only two options: automatic and manual. If I choose automatic, then I can give a requisition number starting value. So here, if I mentioned 962. That means when I create a requisition, that requisition number would be 962. And then the second requisition will have 962. So it goes with incremental of one. And then that's automatic. Let's say we have another option which is manual. What happens when we choose manual? Whenever you create a requisition, you will see a field called requisition number. So the users, whoever is creating the requisition, has to manually, enter the requisition number. And if the customer prefers to automatically generate, then we can choose this. So in the requisition number generation method, what are the key points which you guys have to remember is when we choose the requisition number generation method to be automatic, then it can always be only numeric. You cannot have an alphanumeric automatic number generation method. So this is one request you will get from some of your customers, where they say they wanted to have where they say they wanted to have alphanumeric. For example, in my current project, right, they have the presence in 10 plus countries. So what the customer says, Harish, whenever the recruiter or the hiring manager is creating a requisition, we want the requisition numbers to start with the country code. Okay? So let's say if it is US, then it should start with US 1001. And if it is UK, UK 1001. If it is India, IN 1001. And then UAE, they want AE 1001. So they wanted to have something like that. But we cannot have an automatic method for that, because in automatic, system supports only numeric values. This is one important thing which you guys need to have that in mind. And the next thing,
One question here, Harish.
yes, sir, this one.
Is it field customizable at any point in time?
Which field there is one?
This requisition number generation method. Like let's say at the initial of this project, we want this to be automatic, but in the mid, we want this to be manual. Is
Yes,
it
we can
possible?
do that. Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, when we start implementing, right, we will keep it as automatic, and then we'll give the starting value as 1001. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then let's assume that after a year we end up creating some 700, or let's assume 750 requisition. So the requisition number would be the last number would be 1750, and then based on some organization decisions, you switch to manual. Okay? And then you will have alphanumeric or some series. Okay? But when you enter the number, right, when if the requisition number generation method is manual, and then if you try to create a requisition with a number which has already been associated to some other requisition, then system will automatically throw an error stating that this number is already used. And
Okay.
now let's say, you manually, when you're creating a requisition, you put the number as let's say 1800. And then later point of time, your organization decided they want to switch back to automatic. And then you put the automatic, right? You should make sure the automatic numbers should not have an impact with your existing ones. Let's say you cannot put, the requisition starting value as 1700, because 1700 to 1800, all those numbers are already utilized. So system will keep throwing you errors.
Okay.
So this basic validation system does it. You are clear?
Yeah, Harisha. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Next, we have this, maximum number of unverified job applications. What is this field does is like, when a candidate is applying to the requisition, right? After entering all the informations, candidates has to verify the job application, because in ORC, right, we don't have this concept of username and password. There is no username password functionality in ORC career sites. Okay? So it's all based on their candidate's email. So whenever a candidate applies, they get an email with a verification code. They have to enter the verification code to complete the job application. So just wanted to understand, like, what is the current recruitment tool you guys are using?
We are using Oracle only.
ORC only.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought the ORC was implemented. Okay. So you are already using ORC.
Correct. So, but it was not fully implemented. So we are in implementing stage.
Okay. And before that, which tool you were using?
No, before that I was using Taleo,
Okay. Got
my
it.
previous company.
Okay. So in Tally, if you remember, Franklin, the candidates have to create a user account. They
Correct.
have to
Yes.
enter an email ID and a password, right? Whereas in ORC, right, there is no functionality. So candidate has to complete the job application, and then once they click on submit, they get an, a verification code to the email ID. They have to enter the verification code. So what happens, like, when the candidate clicks on the submit button but do not enter the verification code? Any idea what will happen to that candidate?
Maybe
So,
he cannot apply.
uh, so what happens is those candidates, right? They will be under prospects because they have not completed the job application. They have not completed the verification, right? So they would be under prospects. So let's say I as a candidate apply to some companies where career set, and then I enter all my details. I clicked on submit. After that, I have not verified my job application. Okay. So if I wanted to apply again to another requisition, right? Uh, then the system will allow me to apply for the second job application. But even if the second job application also, if I don't verify, then for the third time, right, system will not allow me to apply using the same email ID, because here the maximum number of unverified job applications are mentioned as one. So I can have only one unverified job application, and then I can have n number of verified job applications. That's the purpose of this particular field. Okay. So next we have organization
But
tree.
what happened to the other job application who are not verified?
That will still be as a prospect. So the recruiters can still see the job application, but those would be under the prospects count, not on the applications. If you remember, we saw the prospect
Yeah,
application prospect in yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those candidates will be in prospects.
Okay. So in Taleo, prospects are equal to incomplete application, right?
See, I have not used Taleo much. It's been a very long time. But from a terminology perspective, yes, these are incomplete job applications.
Okay. Mhm.
So next we have
Ramesh,
organization. Yes, Franklin.
from prospect we can move to this applications, right?
Yes. We can do that. The recruiters can do that.
Recruiters can do. Yes.
See, recruiters can do a lot of things. Okay, which we'll see that in detail. Okay, since we'll see what all the recruiters can do and what kind of customizations we can do for the recruiters.
So
So next,
does it possible that the application can be moved to prospects? No,
no,
right?
that cannot be done.
Okay.
From prospects to Java application, you can go up the river, but you cannot. You can go with the flow, but you cannot go against the flow, right? So
Okay.
similarly, from prospects to job applications, yes, but applications to prospects, no. Maybe for some other requisition, not for the same requisition. For requisition one, I might be in job application. So I can, recruiter can create this candidate as a prospect for requisition number two.
Yeah. Got it. But once the candidate comes from prospects to application, that process cannot be reversed.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
So next we have this organization tree. So you guys would have configured a similar kind of organization tree in your current project as well, right? So what does we do in the organization tree? We will define like which is the top enterprise, and then the legal entities below it, and then under each legal entity what kind of BUs has to come. Under each BU, what all departments has to come. So that is what we define in the organization tree, and then we will see how to create an organization tree. But little later point of time, we'll go in detail and see how to create it. Maybe as part of the job requisitions, we will see how to create an organization tree. But for now, we will just understand, what is the functionality of it. And these are some new function. This is a new functionality which we have. Okay, allow withdraw candidates to reapply. So with a standard process, what happens is once a candidate has completed the job application, and then if the candidate withdraws the job application, if the candidate withdraws the job application, sorry, if the candidate withdraws the job application, right, then the candidate cannot reapply to the same requisition. So, but if the customer says we want the candidates to, reapply to the same requisition again, then we can select this checkbox here. So if I select this checkbox, that means, the withdrawn candidates, they can still go ahead and reapply to it. And this functionality is common for both internal and your external candidates. It's not only for your external, even for the internal candidates. Once they withdraw from the job application, they cannot able to reapply. But if you enable this checkbox, then they can able to apply. Next functionality which we have is the contingent worker is external candidate. So at the beginning of the session, like I talked about this. Some customers, they want the contingent workers, contractors, to be treated as an external candidates. Why is that like that? Because once we if I just go here, so we have like the pre-screening questions which we talked about, right? The pre-screening questions, we can define if the candidate is an external candidate, these are the questions you need to ask. If the candidate is an internal candidate, then these are the questions which you need to ask. So we can define an criteria for it. Similarly, if a contingent worker is applying to a requisition, then they want, if the customer says they wanted to address, or if they wanted to take up all the pre-screening questions which is created for the external candidate, then we will come and select this checkbox. So if this checkbox is selected, then all the contingent workers will follow the process which is defined for an external candidate. If this checkbox is not selected, then they will follow the process which is defined for an internal candidate. So for now, I will just keep it unchecked. Next, we have pre-fill legislative information in candidate application. So what does it means is like, against the candidate job application, we can create certain flex fields, which we talked about in the previous session also. Flex fields are some common, custom fields which we can able to create. So when a candidate is applied to one requisition, and then if the same candidate is applying to a second requisition, right, then all these custom fields which we have created, right, should be automatically moved to the next requisition also. So that's the pre-fill one, and we will see this in detail once we go to the job applications. And next is again, it's a new functionality which was added very recently. Pre-fill pre-screen questions in external candidate applications. So let's say we have one standard set of pre-screening questions, like for example, are you legally eligible to work in India? Are you 18 years and above? Okay? And then have you worked with our organization before? So these are some standard pre-screening questions we created. So what happens is pre-screening questions are independent to the job applications. That means that let's say I as a candidate, if I have 5 different job application, I can have the same pre-screening question, right? I can have 5 different responses against each requisition. But if the customer says no, they want to have maintain a uniformity, in the pre-screening questions, then we select this checkbox. So what happens is when I select this checkbox, all the responses which I given in the first job application, right, that will be automatically populated to my second job application as well. And then the same would be auto-populated with all my future job applications as well. So that's the purpose of this particular functionality. So these are the different core setups which we have under the recruiting management. Any doubts or questions, team, on this section before I move on to the next one?
Yeah, these pre-screening questions are attached to requisitions only, right, Harish?
Yes, correct. You are right.
But every requisition can have different kind of pre-screening questions.
Yes. See, if let's
Not
say,
like
for example, in
Mhm.
first requisition, right, you have 10 pre-screening questions. And then
Mhm.
in second requisition, you have, another 10 pre-screening questions. Okay? For
Mhm.
both the requisitions, if there are any pre-screening questions which are common,
Okay.
then only those data would be automatically filled.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Got it.
If there are completely different, right, then none of this data would be auto-filled. But if there are two pre-screening questions which are common in both the applications, then only for those two data, the responses would be pre-filled automatically.
Okay. That will reduce the candidate overhead while filling the second applications, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hmm.
Any other doubts or questions, Tim, on this?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So then we'll move on to the next section. For now, I'll just click on cancel. So we have something called as recruiting activity center here, which we will again come back and see it in the later point of time. Next, we have search functionality. So here we don't normally, we don't make, make any changes to the setups until and unless there is some issues with our candidate search. So when we search for the candidates, or if we are having some issues with the search streams or some issues, right, then normally what we do is we raise an SR with Oracle. So SR is like, it's a service request, basically a ticket with Oracle support. And then, they will investigate what is the issue. And if they say like, go to the search, here to this particular section and, make some changes, then we normally come and do the setup. Otherwise, we normally don't do any setup because these are automatically configured. And then we have configure synonyms. This is something new. So let us just skip this for now, but we'll come back to it later point out. And all the other functionalities, right? We'll just skip it, but we'll come back to it in a later point of time. But we'll just look into the candidate experience. So the first field which we have here is keep me signed in for external candidates. So what does is like, if on a real time, like, we all use Gmail, Facebook, Instagrams, in mobile and in the desktop, right? So we don't need to sign in each and every time. Once we enter, username and password, that will keep us signed in, right? So the similar kind of functionality for the external candidates. So if you wanted the external candidates to keep signed in the career site, then you can just select this checkbox. If you select this checkbox, system will ask you like, how many days you want the candidates to be signed in. So customer to customer, if this value keeps changing. Next, the most important, field in this section is the candidate auto confirmation. What is this candidate auto confirmation? So as part of the job application, once the candidate enters their full name, and then once they click on submit, they have to do their verification, right? If you wanted to skip that verification, then you can enable this checkbox. Once you enable this checkbox, then the candidate don't need to do the email verifications. The system will take it as an auto confirmation. That's the functionality of this. But as a personal, thought, I would never recommend any of the customers to enable this option. The reason being that in the past we have seen a lot of issues when we have this checkbox enabled. One most common thing what happens is when you type the email ID, there could be some typo errors. Okay? Though, like, once you enter the email ID as part of your job application, the candidate has to reconfirm the email ID. But still, there are high possibility that the candidate would enter some typos or some kind of issue, some kind of mismatch. Then the candidate would not be getting the job application. Basically, we will have a job application with an incorrect email ID. Okay? So this kind of issues comes up, when we enable the auto confirmation. So in case, imagine if you're not enable this auto confirmation, then after clicking on the job application, the candidate would be waiting for the email. And then the candidate would not get the verification code. And then the candidate realized that, he or she has entered a wrong email ID. And then they can, create a new job application. But if we have enabled this, then the candidate would not even know that, they have entered an incorrect email ID. This is one. And one of the, a funny, on a funny note, right, we had a customer where, like, there was a miscommunication between a recruiter and a candidate. And then the candidate took it very personally. And then, the candidate wants to take a revenge with the recruiter. So what the candidate did is, he created some bots. Okay, and using the bot, the candidate created job applications, fake job applications, and by overnight, the customers' requisitions was piled up with candidates. So we had like roughly 1,500 job applications overnight across multiple requisitions, which just messed up, the system very badly. So this kind of situation also we have faced. So that's why we normally don't recommend enabling this candidate auto confirmation. And the next field which we have is the candidate last name verification and phone number request. What is this? Is like, let's say I, as a candidate, submitted my job application and verified it. And then if I go to the candidate self-service page where the candidate can see the status of the job application, right? If I wanted to go to that page, what happens is the system will first ask for my email ID. Once I enter my email ID, system sends a verification code, and then I have to enter the verification code. And if we enable this checkbox, then we'll have a second authentication where I have to enter my last name and then the phone number which I used in my job application. It's a two FA kind of two-factor authentication. So that's the purpose of this particular field. Next, carrier site search and requisition description. So in the carrier sites, if you want the external candidates to search for the requisitions based on the content which is there in the description, then we select this particular checkbox. Okay? And then we have autocorrect and keyword search. So we all would have used this, autocorrect functionality where, like, when the candidates are typing something, let's say, for example, if I type, human capital, management, and then, when I just type HUM, and then system will show me some auto correction options. So if we want that to be available in the carrier set, then we just select this checkbox. So that's the purpose of this particular checkboxes here. Next, we have is job search, SEO. So we all know what is an SEO, right? The search engine optimization. So if the customer wants to, enable SEOs, then, that's a separate out of, Fusion tool. So once you create it there, you have to just get the link and then paste that link here. And then we have corporate branding. So what is this corporate branding? We have two functionalities, vanity URL and vanity email. So whenever you go to career sites, right, you would, if you have been to your company's career site, right, the career site portal would be like, very long. So it will have something like, FA with your instance pod name, instance URL.com carriers, and it would be so long. But let's say if you wanted to create a vanity, an alias name for the URL, then we can enable it using vanity URL. So instead of, the lengthy pod name, I wanted to have like carriers dot, your company name.com. Then we can do that using the vanity URL. And next we have vanity email. What is vanity email? Whenever you send an email from, recruiting module to the candidates, the email from address would be very long. So if you wanted to have something, short, something like do not reply at your company name.com, something like that, then you can enable it using vanity email. So we can also define, a no reply email. So whenever, they send reply back to this email, you can, it will automatically be sent to, the no reply emails. So the no reply email is only needed when for the two-way communication, which is basically part of the recruiting boosters, which we will see the later point of time. Next, we have Google domain verifications. This is something to do with, the vanity URL. So let's not worry about it for now. Next, we have job tags. So job tags are again, it's a new functionality which came like, 2-3 releases back. So what happens in the job tags is like, you will see be the first to apply. It's a tag. and then trending would be another tag which should be displayed against the requisitions in the career sites. Okay? So if the number of job applications, is less than 5, then you will see this, tag called be the first to apply. And for any requisitions which has more than 50 candidates, then, a trending, tag would be displayed against the requisition. So that's the purpose of this particular setups. So these are the different setups which we have against candidate experience. And if I just scroll down all those other setups, right, we'll come back and we'll revisit these setups once we go in detail into our training sessions against the respective topics. So any doubts or questions so far on what we covered in today's session?
No, Harish.
Okay. So if there are no other doubts or questions, then what we'll do is we'll wind up today's session. And then in tomorrow's session, we will start with content library. So the content library is one of the most important setups we have in the recruiting module. We'll start with content library. We'll see what is in content library, how what is the use of it, what are the different options, how to create one, how to modify those things. And then once we are done with the content library, I think tomorrow full day we'll take for the content library. And then Monday we'll look at the hierarchies, and then Tuesday we'll look at all the other setups in the candidate experience. So with this, we'll take a pass for today, and then we'll regroup tomorrow at 8 a.m. IST. And a general request to the team: please try to join the session sharp at 8 o'clock, so that we can have solid 90 minutes of the training session. So with this, we'll wind up for today. Thank you so much, guys. You guys have a great day. Be safe, and let's connect tomorrow at 8 a.m.
Yeah, thanks, Harish. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.